In April, Chamberlain was talking about Hitler missing the bus. A fortnight later, Denmark and Norway had fallen, and the summer term was less than a month old when Rotterdam was reduced to rubble, and the distracted French government had scuttled off to Bordeaux. The river of steel poured unchecked through the Low Countries, leaving in its wake a Maginot Line as obsolete as Martello Towers built to resist invasion in 1805. It was too late to do anything but run for cover, if cover was to be found. The speed and horrid finality of the onrush stunned a man conditioned to think of an offensive's territorial gains in terms of yards, and those yards won at a cost of 100,000 casualties. It was an entirely new concept of war. He could think of no historical equivalent. The Napoleonic swoop on Ulm culminating in Austerlitz and the encirclement of Sedan in 1870 were measured manoeuvres compared to this. At a stroke, huge French armies were dispersed and isolated, and the BEF, pushed back on 3 Channel ports, was reckoned lost. He could not remember feeling so desolate since they brought him news of the accident on Quarry Hill. Catastrophes fell one upon the other like the subsiding stories of a row of tall houses overwhelmed by a hurricane. Belgium surrendered, then France, whereas over here all was confusion and dismay, even after Churchill had ousted Chamberlain and thundered defiance in cadences that struck the ear like parodies of Henry V's oration before Harfleur. Soon long-range shells were falling on Folkestone, roadblocks were set up, even down here in the wilderness, and a local LDV force armed with rook rifles, old army Welbys, and farmers' shotguns patrolled the moors and coastal sectors. There was a sense of unreality and lack of purpose about everything one did, as if the ordinary processes of life, governed for so long by bells, by the school calendar, by arrivals and departures at the beginning and end of each new term, had lost their significance, were mere gestures in a compulsive ritual initiated long, long ago, and persisted in from habit. A terrible sense of urgency seen on the faces of adults spread downwards to the middle and lower schools, where he found himself the target of repeated questions for which he had no kind of answers. "Will they invade, sir?" "How about the Navy, sir?" "Is it true they're dropping paratroopers disguised as nuns, sir?" "Will France fight in North Africa, sir?" "Can't we join the LDVs? There are rifles in the armoury, aren't there, sir?" At least he could answer that one truthfully. There were no rifles in the armoury, not even the much-derided dummies issued to the very youngest recruits in the Corps in their first month of training. Only a week ago, a detachment of terriers had arrived in a lorry and carted them all the way, together with what small arms ammunition was available. By now he assumed those same rifles that had been humped up and down the playing field since the days when Carter had been Corps commander were in the hands of half-trained men drawing army pay, awaiting the first shockwaves of German invaders behind the beaches of Sussex and Hampshire and in the hop fields of the Kentish Weald. But then, like a blessed spate of silence, after an ear-splitting cacophony, came whispers of a fleet of small ships and the lifting of 360,000 castaways from the littered beaches of Dunkirk. No more than a rumour at first, but a persistent one, that presently emerged as a fact, a kind of massive lifeboat snatched from a foundering vessel, surrounded by bobbing heads and upraised arms, and after it a vast wave of thankfulness, followed by a mood of buoyancy, not unlike the first stage of intoxication. Apparently it was not the end of everything, or not quite, so that like everybody about him he plucked up heart and took up the threads of authority again, snatching a moment here and there to collate the snippets of news that found their way to his desk via post and telephone, and the occasional appearance in his parlour of a harassed parent, past or present. It seemed a miracle that of the score of Banfieldians serving with the BEF, 14 were already reported safe and well, and 1 or 2 had actually rung through while on survivor's leave. He conceived the idea then of posting a list of them on the quad notice board, announcing details within minutes of receiving his stream of messages, then squinting through the window of Algy's Mount Olympus, where he could see them crowding round the slip of paper hanging there, relaying the news to the outer fringes of the crowd. Hello everyone, welcome to and welcome back to my channel, Book Time with Elvis with me, Mark, and welcome to another edition of What a Corker, which did surprisingly well as a video actually, and a few people took it up and followed the format, so I was pleased about that. Now, obviously I don't know how regular a section it can be, because not every book I read's a corker, right? I mean, some of them are really good, but yeah, the last one was spectacular, but this one even blew that out of the water. And strangely enough, it's the same author, or maybe not strangely enough. You probably noticed from the reading that it's very kind of nostalgic for old England and plucky old England or Britain standing alone against the Nazi jackboot. And I am a sucker for that kind of thing. I will admit it. I know some people here don't like that kind of thing and perhaps think there's some kind of glorification. I don't think there is. I think you have to take it in the context. And if you read the book, you'll understand that that's not really what's going on. And the book in question is the absolutely fantastic To Serve Them All My Days by R.F. Delderfield, who appeared in the first edition of What a Corker with his fantastic book, The Dreaming Suburb. Now, there are some similarities because both books are set in the interwar period and the run-up to the Second World War. Both feature heavily a World War I veteran who, after their experiences, become kind of committed pacifists. However, that kind of begins to change once they realize the justification and the justness of fighting people like the Nazis. And in this book, what happens is we follow David Powlett-Jones, who is invalided out of the First World War, the end of 1917, beginning 1918. And he suffered a lot of trauma, and his doctor suggests that he take up a teaching position at this minor public school. For my American friends, a public school is not a public school. In your understanding, a public school is a fee-paying school, so like a kind of private school, generally a boarding school. And this is a boarding school set down in the West Country of England, and he goes there to teach history. And his experiences there with the people he meets, the pupils, of course, it's an all-boys school. The pupils, his co-workers, his love interests go so far in curing him from his problems, and it's just a beautiful book. I absolutely adore it. And being a teacher myself, being somebody who went to boarding school as well, there's a lot that resonates in this. Now, of course, my school was, well, there are some similarities, but of course I went to boarding school in the late 1990s, not in the early part or the first, 40 years of the 20th century. So there's similarities, but also big differences. But it did mean I could understand a lot of the terminology in this book, which I read with a wonderful friend and subscriber, Sonia. I'm not sure as yet if she's finished it. She was hot on my heels for a while there, but I know she's also been quite busy. Yes, the book is full of nostalgia for Britain or an England. Well, I should say Britain because the main character is actually Welsh. She's not English. A Britain that probably never really was. But I think Delderfield does do a good job as well of bringing to life what probably normal people felt, the middle classes. And this is kind of why I like it, because in literature of this time and this period, it's always the working classes or the upper classes. You see the plight of the people who are struggling to survive, and then you see the excesses of people who are living, the high life. Now, this is a very comfortable middle ground. It's not a top public school, so it's not, the school isn't overflowing with aristocrats. I mean, there may be one or two there, but they are mostly children of, strong middle class families of that period, and it's nice to have that kind of different look and see, how they viewed all these things that went on during this period. And it's so wonderful to kind of see the effect that the school has, not just on the main character, David Powlett-Jones, but also those around him. And the school is, it's a wonderful place, and it's a book filled with interesting school time stories, I suppose, but also there's a lot of fun, but mixed in with a few tear-jerking moments as well. It really is a fantastic read, and I thoroughly recommend you check it out. To serve them all my days, R.F. Delderfield, what a corker. Do take care, everybody. See you all soon. All the best. Bye-bye.